Picture this. You've got a toy car racing down a custom-built track. It starts on this steep, sweeping parabolic curve. And then, bam, it abruptly switches to a straight diagonal ramp. If you're the engineer designing this thing, how do you mathematically guarantee that the car is going to transition smoothly? How do you make sure it won't crash, stall, or just fly right off the track at that exact connection point? You might think, hey, just making sure the two track pieces physically touch is enough, right? But actually, it's not. To guarantee a truly smooth ride, we need something more powerful. Up until now, we've really only looked at finding the slope of a curve at one specific, isolated spot. But man, doing that one point at a time to design an entire track, that is way too tedious. We need a universal mathematical tool. We need a way to evaluate the slopes of the entire track all at once, just to make sure there are absolutely no jagged corners. And that is exactly what we're going to master in this lecture. By the end of our time together, you're going to understand 4 absolutely crucial concepts. First, the derivative function itself. Second, the limit formula that actually generates it. Third, the rules of differentiation, basically knowing when this math works and when it completely breaks down. And finally, some real-life applications to solve problems exactly like our toy car track. All right, let's dive right in. Section 1, the derivative function formula. Like I mentioned, you've probably calculated the derivative at a specific number before, getting a single static slope value. But we're leveling up here. What's really cool is the formula we're going to use to do this. We are defining a brand new overarching function, f prime of x. It's the limit as h approaches 0 of f of x plus h minus f of x, all divided by h. This single equation is literally the engine for everything we're doing today. Instead of spitting out a boring number, it spits out a dynamic function that can output the slope for any valid x value on your entire graph. Let's make this super concrete with an example. Let's find f prime of x for the quadratic function f of x equals x squared minus 2x. Walk through these steps with me, it's pretty satisfying. Step 1, we substitute our function into that limit definition. Step 2, we do the algebra. We expand the quadratic, which gives us x squared plus 2xh plus h squared minus 2x minus 2h. And when we subtract the original function, the x squared and the 2x terms perfectly cancel out. Step 3, we factor out an h from those remaining numerator terms and cancel it with the h in the denominator. Now, you might be wondering, why are we doing all this? Well, by mathematically canceling that h, we completely eliminate the impossible divide by 0 problem. Finally, step 4, we evaluate the limit as h goes to 0, and we're left with this beautiful, simple function, 2x minus 2. See, the math isn't magic, it's just a perfectly logical process. Real quick, before we move on, let's clarify some notation you're definitely going to see. You'll see f prime of x a lot, for sure, but you'll also frequently run into dy over dx. That's called Leibniz notation. It's really just another way to say derivative. It literally just represents the change in y over the change in x as that change in x gets infinitely small. They mean the exact same thing, so don't let the different letters throw you off. Moving on to section 2, visualizing the slopes. So let's take a look at our original function, f of x equals x squared minus 2x, right side by side with its newly found derivative, f prime of x equals 2x minus 2. Follow that original parabola visually for a second. Notice that for any x value less than 1, the parabola is decreasing, it's sliding downwards. And look at the derivative graph right below it. For those exact same x values, the derivative line is in negative territory, below the x-axis. Then, when x is greater than 1, the parabola starts increasing, and boom, its derivative graph is strictly positive. So the derivative graph is quite literally a visual map of the original function's changing slopes. It's a decoder ring for the curve. Wait, hold on a second. This is an absolutely crucial concept. Let's do a quick check to see if we're tracking. Look right at where x equals 1. What happens to the derivative when the original curve hits the exact bottom, the absolute lowest vertex of that parabola? The answer is 0. Right at that vertex, the original function has a perfectly horizontal tangent line. It's not going up, it's not going down. The slope is exactly 0, which means our derivative function crosses the x-axis at exactly 0. Let's roll into section 3, continuity versus differentiation. All right, this is where we actually solve our toy car track problem from earlier. But first, here's a classic student question that pops up all the time. Wait a minute, if a line is connected, like if I can draw the entire graph without lifting my pencil, doesn't it naturally have a slope and therefore a derivative everywhere? The answer to that is a hard no, and this brilliantly illustrates a major mathematical rule. Theorem 3.1. Think of continuous as just meaning the line is connected, with no physical breaks. But differentiable, that means the curve is smooth, with predictable, calculable slopes. So the absolute key takeaway here is this. If a function is differentiable, it must be continuous. But, and this is a huge catch, a continuous function is not always differentiable. Let's look at exactly where derivatives fail to exist. It generally happens in 4 ways. First up, discontinuous breaks. If there's a physical jump or a hole in the graph, you obviously can't find a derivative there. Second, sharp corners. Think of an absolute value graph shaped like a sharp V. It's totally continuous, sure, but at that sharp point at the bottom, the slope instantly snaps from a negative trajectory to a positive one without any warning. The limit of the slopes doesn't match from left to right, so the derivative completely fails. Third, vertical tangents. You'll see this on graphs like the cube root of x, where the slope becomes completely vertical and mathematically infinite. And fourth, wildly oscillating graphs, where the line vibrates so insanely fast the slope just can't settle. Basically, smoothness is strictly required. So, let's bring this all the way back to reality and finish building our toy car track. The transition point between our parabolic curve and the straight ramp happens at x equals -10. To guarantee the car won't just drop through the floor, the 2 track functions must share the exact same y value at -10. That makes it continuous, ensuring the track is physically connected. But to avoid a sharp corner that would launch our toy car flying across the room, they must also share the exact same derivative at -10. By calculating our values so the functions are equal to each other and their derivatives are equal to each other, we mathematically guarantee a perfectly smooth, crash-free ride. Pretty amazing, right? Okay, final part, section 4, higher order derivatives. So we know the derivative is simply a function itself, right? Well, what happens if we take the derivative of the derivative? Let's track this on a timeline. Point 1 is position, literally where an object is in space. We'll call it f of x. Point 2 is velocity, how fast your position is changing over time, which is our first derivative, f prime of x. Point 3 is acceleration, how fast your velocity is changing, which is the second derivative, f double prime of x. Think of it like driving a car. Position is your exact location on a GPS. Velocity is what you're reading on your speedometer. And acceleration, that's the physical push you actually feel against your back when you stomp on the gas pedal. Let's do a super rapid mini example to see this in action. Say we start with a position function, f of x equals 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. Applying our derivative rules, the first derivative, which represents our velocity, becomes 4x minus 3. Now we just run that exact same process again. We take the derivative of 4x minus 3, and that is simply 4. So the second derivative, the acceleration, is a constant 4. See how nicely the math scales up to capture much more complex physical realities? Okay, before we wrap up this explainer, let's quickly summarize the key points to really lock this in. Number 1, the limit formula takes our slope concept and creates a universal slope function for an entire graph. Number 2, being mathematically continuous just isn't enough. Differentiability strictly requires smooth curves with no sharp corners or infinite vertical tangents. And number 3, taking higher order derivatives, like the derivative of a derivative, lets us measure real-world, layered phenomena like acceleration. I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. If the first derivative shows us velocity and the second derivative shows us acceleration, what could the third or even fourth derivative possibly reveal about an object's future motion? Think about the physical feeling of a sudden jarring change in acceleration, like when a driver unexpectedly slams on the brakes. We're going to explore exactly what that means and how to calculate it in our next